Hey everybody, it's Matt Wrestling with Whiskey back again, taking once again another dive into the Scotch Whisky world. The E in Wrestling with Whiskey gone for now. And today, after I've had a couple dives in here and there, some single malts, we are diving into a blended malt. And we're going to talk about what all that means, but I'll show you what we're looking with today. We are looking at the Copper Dog Blended Malt Scotch Whisky. Now I know over here in America, blending with bourbon has often become a kind of a bad word, just because of the history of rectifiers and all those people who blended in neutral grain spirits in the early days before bourbon became a distinct product of the United States in 1964, and the regulations were put in place to not add this and small batch, which is not legally defined, but all the regulations for bourbon were put into place, and now we have batches and things like that, which are usually all straight bourbons and everything like that, and it's very much more up and up than it used to be 100 years ago. Now in Scotland, blend is much, much more common with scotches and whiskies over there, and they have various meanings. Now this bottle in particular is a blended malt Scotch whiskey, which is different than a blended Scotch whiskey. If it's made in Scotland, you can kind of call it Scotch. But a blended malt Scotch whiskey is a blend of single malt Scotches. I'm saying all these words a lot. Now, if you just see a blended whiskey or a blended Scotch whiskey, that can add in some neutral grain spirit to the blend. So when you see blended malt whiskey, you know that you are getting a blend of single malts from various distilleries or wherever. But you do know it is all single malt Scotch whiskey blended together. This one, Copper Dog, happens to have no less than 8 single malt Scotch whiskeys blended slowly, married together in old casks for an easy drink Scotch. Blah, 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 blah. Marketing, marketing, marketing. There's only one way for us to truly find out, and that's to taste it. So let's do that. Here we have, ladies and gentlemen, our Copper Dog Blended Malt Scotch Whiskey. Let's dive on in. Now right up, this has a very buttery kind of nose. This has got the fruits, the lighter apple, pear, grape, those light fruits that I often get on these single malts. But this actually has a kind of a hearty, buttery, viscous, in a weird way, nose, an oily nose. A little more cereal, grain notes in there, but very round and robust. It's only 40%, 80 proof. So there's literally no alcohol coming off this thing. There's no age statement either, so we don't know how long they've been resting in those barrels, or if they, what the ages of the single malts that were blended in were. Not age shaded, we don't know. But that's nice, easy, very standard Scotch notes. That is a much more bitter palate than I was expecting. There's like these dried leaves, grain note, little oaky, not in a typical sweet oak tannin kind of way, but just like a bitter, that bitter oak. The sweetness from the fruit on the nose that I was getting is not really there on the palate. And 80 proof as well. It is very thin, almost watery, but there is a heaviness to the liquid in general. Despite it feeling thin on the tongue, as you swallow it, there is a substantialness. That's not a frickin' word. No, I'm just making stuff up. But yeah, I'm going to go one more time on this. it just really gives way when it comes to the palate. It goes in and out very quickly, no real spice to it. Gets bitter very quickly without having any kind of interesting drying notes. It doesn't really stick anywhere on the palate. It's not terrible, but I'll be honest, I'm really not enjoying this compared to some of the other single malts and stuff I've had. I want to try different blends and everything too, so maybe my opinion will be turned around. But for now, the Copper Dog, whatever that blend is, not sitting super well with me. So that's my thought on the Copper Dog blended malt Scotch whiskey. Gotta make sure I get that right. Stay tuned for more of my experiences through Scotch and world whiskeys as we continue to wrestle with whiskey.